Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bravo Tea with Jared B. This is the 7th episode, and we have somewhat of a slam-packed episode for you. We have the wedding special of Teresa. Teresa gets married on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, and we have what was an explosive Part 1 reunion of Vanderpump Rules. I have to say, if you have not watched the Peacock version of last night's episode of Part 1 of Vanderpump Rules, the version on Peacock is the uncensored and extended version. I know that's what it said on Twitter. I don't see what was extended because I feel like everything I watched live last night, I saw on the version I saw on Peacock. But let me tell you something. There are no bleeps on this version of the Vanderpump Rules reunion. There are no beeps. You are hearing exactly what everyone is saying. And honestly, I loved it. I enjoyed it. I felt like I was watching something that I wasn't supposed to be watching in a way, because usually we're used to watching things on Bravo and all the curse words and all the nasty things they say to each other are bleeped out. So Bravo, you have started something with this. I need all the reunions. I need every episode that comes on Peacock the next day to now be uncensored. You did this, and now I'm expecting it. I think that we should all band together as Bravo viewers and make them promise to us that we will now get the uncensored version of everything that comes on Peacock the next day. Let's band together. Let's get in formation, Bravo viewers. So let's get into the Real Housewives of New Jersey. So we have the Real Housewives of New Jersey. This is season 13, episode 16, and this is Teresa's wedding special called Teresa Gets Married. I have to say the first thing that I noticed when this episode started is how red Louis is. You know, it's the first thing I always notice is this man is as red as a fire hydrant, and I think that he should go to the doctor and get that checked out because I'm starting to become concerned. So that's the first thing I noticed. We start off with the first scene. This is the wedding venue. This is the day before the wedding, and Teresa's talking about not having her parents there and that she never thought that her brother wouldn't be at the wedding. But if you see the things that have transpired over this current season of the Real Housewives of New Jersey, then you know exactly why Joe and Melissa are not at Teresa's wedding. I can't say I relate. I can't say I would ever be in a place with my brother and sister that I would not show up at their wedding. You know, I think that's sad. I mean, like, in defense of Teresa, for the sake of the family and the peace, should Joe and Melissa just showed up and just put on a smile and just showed up for support for Teresa and Louis, even if they didn't really mean it, especially so, you know, Teresa can't use it against them. I don't know. That's a sticky situation. So we have Gia having a conversation with Dolores and Jen Aiden. Jen Aiden asked Gia how has her mom been. Gia is the daughter of Teresa, the eldest daughter of Teresa. And Jen Aiden's like, legit, for real. And then she looks over her shoulder like she's afraid Teresa's about to jump out the bushes and smack her in the back of the head, because Jen Aiden knows that she's asking something that she really shouldn't be asking. This is the day before Teresa's wedding, and you're asking about Joe. Essentially, I know Jen Aiden did not ask about Joe, but when Jen Aiden asked Gia, how's your mom really doing? Jen Aiden knows it's going to end up being about Joe. So Gia says that Joe, her Uncle Joe, Teresa's brother, not coming to Teresa's wedding means that the bridge is burned and they're all done. Her and her sisters, they're done. You know, Gia is entitled to her opinion. She is a grown woman. She's a young woman. I just would not be so vocal about the conflicts between my mother and her siblings. That's just me, to each their own. We know that Teresa's children operate in a different way than, most of us who watch the show would. So, Gia's going to have her opinions. Louis reveals that he had a difficult relationship with his father growing up. At this point, we are at the rehearsal dinner that's downstairs in the cellar. And Louis's dad is giving his speech, and this is when Louis reveals that he had a difficult relationship with his father growing up, and that his father was an alcoholic, but he's been sober now for 8 years. In this moment, I realized that we really don't know anything about Louis. All we know about Louis is the rumors that have been out there about him. The rumors that have circulated on Twitter and Instagram, and the rumors that have been spread by Margaret Joseph on The Real Housewives of New Jersey. But other than that, we don't really know Louis' backstory. And maybe next season, Louis should share more of himself instead of being in the mix as much as he was this season, because I think Louis came off very thirsty, which is why he is probably so red. He's parched. He's dehydrated. Teresa needs to get him some water, fill up the Brita Teresa. Because I think Louis needs to balance his personality. Louis came in hot this season, and Louis, I think, got a little bit involved, a little bit too much. For someone to be the future house husband of Teresa, Louis was in the mix a little bit too much. And, that whole situation about the private investigator that he worked with to dig up dirt on the other cast members on The Real Housewives of New Jersey. But back to the show. I believe that Louis' dad gave a great speech, and that was really nice. So we get to the next day, the day of the wedding. Teresa's hairdresser is doing her hair. Teresa's hairdresser is full of personality, and she talks about the fact that Teresa was gushing over Louis because Louis would send her Sade songs. Now, if you do not know who Sade is, most of you should know who Sade is. If you don't, Google Smooth Operator by Sade. It's spelled Sade. You have heard at least Smooth Operator. I love me some Sade. If I'm home on the weekend, cleaning, doing laundry, and it's a beautiful day outside, or if it's, raining. I love a rainy day as long as I'm on the inside. And I will play the best of Sade. And it's so relaxing and soothing. And she has such a beautiful husky voice. And I love Sade. So I understand why Teresa would be a little goo-goo gaga over the fact that Louis sent her some Sade music. I get it. So Teresa's makeup artist mentions the fact that Teresa's brother is not coming to the wedding. And one thing I have to say about Teresa, as much as she says that she wants peace in her life, she continues to surround herself with people that love drama and love to stir the pot. And I don't think that Teresa sees that, because Teresa likes loyalty. Blind loyalty, and she likes foot soldiers. Teresa likes people to be soldiers for her and not call her out on her BS, and if you do, she will turn against you. We've all seen it over the last 13 seasons of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. So, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you haven't been watching the show. So Jen Aiden pulls Teresa aside and gives her a locket with a picture of her parents, which is such a beautiful gesture and really nice of Jen to do for Teresa. Then Jen Aiden apologizes to Teresa for telling Danielle about the cheating rumor about Melissa, because she feels like that played a part in Joe and Melissa not coming to the wedding. And even though it kind of played a part and it kind of didn't, I think, I said on the episode of this podcast where I recapped the season finale of Real Housewives of New Jersey, so this was last Friday's podcast episode, I fully believe that Melissa and Joe were waiting to see if this rumor would come out to decide how they were going to move forward with Teresa. But, in Ireland, we saw that Melissa was in her room and called Joe, who's back in New Jersey, and said, we probably shouldn't go to the wedding. So I don't think Jen Aiden telling Danielle about the cheating rumor about Melissa was the catalyst to the demise of Joe and Melissa's relationship with Teresa, but I do think it contributed to the problem. And then we get to somehow Teresa's daughters find out about the fact that Jen Aiden is speaking to Teresa about Joe. Teresa's daughters do not like the fact that their Uncle Joe is being brought up in conversation, especially since he's not there. And I get it. One thing that has been consistent in this episode so far is everyone is mentioning the fact that Joe is not there. We all know that Joe is not there. That is the elephant in the room. Just because there is an elephant in the room, and I'm talking about like when it comes to this wedding, doesn't mean that everyone has to point it out. And this is supposed to be Teresa's special day. And like everyone is talking about the thing that, it seems like the thing that brings her the most pain. And I'm just like, for the wedding, at least chill out, everyone. But I mean, again, it's also a reality show. So these people are showing up knowing what they need to talk about. So, if they didn't, we would have nothing to watch. So then, Teresa's hair gets done, and it's big hair. Growing up, I loved the show The Nanny. With Fran Drescher? And she would be like, Mr. Sheffield. And she would like be in those short skirts and like jump on the desk of Mr. Sheffield. And I believe Nanny Fine, Fran Drescher, she would say the higher the hair, the closer to God. But I would also say that this hair is very Jersey. High hair, big hair. It looks like a bird's nest. Those bird's nests where the birds like weave, leaves through their their nest. It's like there's a specific bird that builds a nest that looks like a weaved basket, a woven basket. And I believe a community of birds live in this basket. That is what Teresa's hair is giving. It is given woven basket. And she paid $10,000 for that woven basket hair. But apparently she has the money. And so one thing that's noticeable at this wedding is that this is a wedding full of housewives. We have the glory. Like this is basically like an ultimate girls trip, but it happens to be Teresa's wedding. We have Dolores, we have Jen Aiden, we have Margaret Joseph, we have Danielle, we have Jackie and Jen Fessler, who are on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. We have Chanel Ayan from the Real Housewives of Dubai. We have Jill Zarin and Dorinda Medley from the Real Housewives of New York. We have Phaedra, Kenya Moore, and Cynthia from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. We have Alexia from the Real Housewives of Miami. We have Ashley Darby from the Real Housewives of Potomac. I mean, come on. That's how many housewives? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I mean, pretty much Teresa had her own mini BravoCon at her wedding. But, it's going to get views because we want to see all the housewives. I'm surprised a fight didn't break out between someone. And so we're getting ready for the wedding. Well, people are getting seated for the wedding, and people are sitting outside. They're sweating. And I have to say that one of my biggest fears is attending an outdoor wedding in the summer in Georgia. If you know about that Georgia heat, pretty much once you get past mid-June, it becomes miserable to be outside. Miserable. It gets hot, 100 degrees. It's humid. It could be 11 o'clock at night and you go outside and you're sweating. I don't like it. Honestly, for me, if it gets above 90 degrees here in Georgia, I try not to leave my place. And if I do go someplace, it needs to be heavily air conditioned. So I would just hate to be sitting outside in my Sunday's best, or I guess this would be my wedding's best. It's summertime. There's no... Teresa and Louis should have gotten a tent, honestly. This should have been done in a tent outside so people are not sweating bullets. Danielle said everyone's going to have a smelly cha-cha, or was that Margaret Joseph? One of them said everyone's going to get a smelly cha-cha because they're in Spanx. So after the wedding, the wedding was beautiful. It's a wedding. Once you've seen one wedding, once you've been to one wedding, you've kind of seen them all. So after the wedding, Jackie, Marge, and Jen Fessler are standing at one of those high top tables. And they're talking after the wedding. And Marge mentions the fact that she feels bad that Joe isn't at the wedding. And Jen Fessler says something that I agree with. Jen Fessler told her friend, Marge, this has nothing to do with you. And I say it louder for everyone that's been bringing up Joe and his absence on this episode so far. This does not involve you. Stay out of it. Thank you, Jen Fessler. Let's give some claps for Jen Fessler at this moment. So during the reception, this is when things get a little tense. The Gorgers apparently posted an Instagram story of them partying and dancing in someone's backyard. I don't know if it was their backyard, or they were over a friend's backyard, or Rachel Fuda's backyard, or a neighbor's backyard. But they posted Instagram videos, apparently several of them having a good time the night of Teresa's wedding. And honestly, I feel like I think it was a childless. Why can't I? Maybe I need some water. Let me take a sip. I think it was a childish and distasteful thing to do. Especially because in that Instagram story, you hear someone yell, "This is what a real family does." I don't know if that was Melissa Gorga, but it sounded like Melissa Gorga. But I'm not going to say it was Melissa Gorga, if you know what I mean, because I don't want to accuse anyone of doing something that they did not do. That would be very, very irresponsible of me, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I just feel like if you are not on good terms with your sister-in-law, you and your husband, you're not at the wedding, be silent on the day of. Don't post cryptic, Instagram stories, Instagram posts, cryptic messages on Twitter. It's very childish. It's very childish. You may not like your sister-in-law. You may not like how things have turned out, but I just think that it was very distasteful for them to do that the night of Teresa and Louis' wedding, because they knew what they were doing. They knew that people at the wedding would bring it up and try to, tell Teresa about it. So then Louis sees the Instagram story and he gets heated, and he's talking to someone. I don't know if it was his sister that officiated the wedding, but you hear Louis punch something. And one thing that we have seen this season is that Louis is a bit of a hothead, which is also probably why he's so red in the face. And so we find out that Teresa's wedding costs over $500,000. And I have to say, their wedding reception entertainment was quite interesting. It was like a combination of burlesque, Dancing with the Stars, Cirque du Soleil, and a Vegas magic show. What happened? Where's the band? Where's the DJ? No one came here for a Vegas show, but I mean, it's their wedding. But if you're going to, spend $500,000 on something, I think you should probably get your money back on that entertainment. I'm just saying. And that was pretty much the wedding special. Like I said, it was a wedding. Once you've seen one, once you've been to one, it's kind of all the same. Congratulations to Teresa and Louis. I have to say, before we move on to Vanderpump Rules, I'm very happy for Teresa. Teresa deserves happiness. She has been through a lot. Her ex-husband is deported to Italy. Teresa has been to prison. Teresa lost her mother. Teresa lost her father. And so I want Teresa to be happy, but I don't personally trust Louis. And I think that she needs to keep one eye open at night and watch out for Louis. Because I feel like in 3 or 4 years, and maybe 8 years, we're going to find out something about Louis. And I'm afraid that Teresa's going to be heartbroken. And she's going to be especially heartbroken about the fact that her and Louis did not sign a prenup. I don't know what the divorce laws are in the state of New Jersey, but this could get nasty. Louis could come after Teresa for alimony and try to get some of that housewives check. Louis could try to get, residuals off of Teresa's other businesses. A lot of these housewives post things on Instagram for money. Like, at this point, Louis probably knows how much Teresa's bringing in from all this housewives and housewives-related businesses that are off the show. And I'm just afraid with no prenup, Louis is going to come for blood if things go south between them. And I hope that does not happen. But something does not feel right about Louis. Something does not feel right about Louis. Rue la la. That's all I have to say about that. And so when we come back, we're going to discuss this explosive part 1 to the reunion of Vanderpump Rules. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We have Season 10, Episode 16, The Reunion Part 1 of Vanderpump Rules. So Andy Cohen sits down individually with Tom Sandoval, Ariana, and Raquel before the group reunion. In Ariana's portion, she reveals that Tom still lives in the same house that they own together. Lord have mercy. And that they do go-betweens and they have basically a liaison so that they don't have to interact with each other. We also find out that Ariana said that they hooked up 5 days after Guy's Night when they had a one-night stand. I feel like we already knew that already, but just in case anyone forgot that, that is what Ariana has revealed. And Ariana says that she was never suspicious of anything, which we saw. There was no suspicion in Ariana's mind, so much so that she was vehemently defending not only Raquel, but Tom Sandoval. So in Tom Sandoval's portion of his individual interview with Andy Cohen, Sandoval confirms that the affair continued after Raquel's glamping trip. So they had a one-night stand. Sandoval pumped the brakes because he felt like they went too far, and then everything revamped after Raquel's glamping trip or before. Well, Tom Sandoval said that their affair started after Raquel's glamping trip. But later on in this reunion episode, Tom Schwartz says that they started before Raquel's glamping trip. So Sandoval also says that he felt like Ariana's gay BFF and that they put on for their relationship for the cameras. But Ariana disagrees. Ariana believes that Sandoval is coaching Raquel to make sure that they get their story straight, which I could see that being true. But at this point, does it even matter? Does it even matter if the story is congruent with each other? What they did was wrong. Having the same story, I mean, yes, it would take some heat off of them. I mean, wouldn't it be great if the stories weren't consistent with each other? That'd be so much fun to watch unfold. And we'll see if that happens on part 2 of this reunion next week. So we get to the reunion block 1, and the cast comes out. Everyone's getting seated. Ariana's looking hot in her revenge dress. James Kennedy is squirming in his seat. He is chomping at the bit and ready for Tom Sandoval to come out. And honestly, it's so intense. I love it so much. I'm not someone that loves being in intense and uncomfortable situations personally, but watching it on television is so, so good. So before this really gets started, I really want to know if the night Allie, who's James Kennedy's girlfriend, the night Allie said she saw Tom Sandoval and Raquel at the Abbey, because remember this season, Allie brought up, I forgot to whom, that Allie thought it was weird that Sandoval and Raquel were together and out at like 2:00 in the morning. And I know that they did go to some concert or someplace called See You Next Tuesday before they went to the Abbey. So I want to know, and we also know that's the same night that they hooked up for the first time. That was a one night stand. So I want to know, are these two separate occasions, or is the night that Raquel and Sandoval hooked up the same night Allie saw them? So I saw in the preview for next week's part 2 reunion that Allie, you see her part of the reunion. So I hope Andy Cohen asks that question of her. And if he doesn't, I hope Allie reveals that, because I really want to know. I also love how Raquel is watching this reunion in a trailer in the parking lot outside the studio. If you don't know why Raquel is sitting in the trailer and not participating in this first part of the reunion, it's because Raquel filed a restraining order, not an extraining order, but it's a restraining order against Sheena, accusing Sheena of punching Raquel in the face, when I think it was just a little scratch from Sheena's hooker nails. So Andy asked Tom Sandoval if he would like to say anything to the group, and Tom Sandoval starts crying, and James is like, pull yourself together, man. And Ariana starts going in. James starts mocking Sandoval, crying. Like, this is just the begin. James is just warming up at this point, honestly. And then Sandoval finishes somewhat of an apology, and James turns to Lala and says, the apology didn't hit for him. And then it's revealed at one point that Tom Sandoval has an assistant. And I just want to know, an assistant for what? Like, what does Tom Sandoval do that's so important that he would need to pay an assistant to work for him when he had to ask for a refund on his $50,000 investment in TomTom from Lisa Vanderpump, which was very generous of Lisa Vanderpump. So then Lala starts going off and saying that Tom Sandoval is basically her ex-husband, Randall Emmett, in 10 years. And LVP felt like that was irresponsible of Lala to say that they're not the same kind of person. Then Lala and Lisa start going back and forth. Lala tells LVP that she rejects her opinion, and I feel like that's bold. Like, I know that Lala doesn't work in Lisa Vanderpump's restaurants, but Lisa Vanderpump and her husband Todd, Ken Todd, are still the executive producer on this show. Like, let's remember, Lala, this is called Vanderpump Rules, not Lala Rules. So in my mind, isn't LVP Lala's boss, essentially? Since Lala is a cast member on Vanderpump Rules, like, I don't know if you could talk to your boss like that and get away with it. I don't know if Lala would get fired, because I feel like she adds a lot to the show, you know, because Lala is not afraid to give her opinion and tell off someone and make someone uncomfortable. And I think that's a valuable asset to Vanderpump Rules. But, you know, Lala, watch what you say to LVP, because she might get you fired at one point. And you all need jobs. You guys have bills to pay. Los Angeles is expensive. And then, wait, we find out at the end of this episode that Lala bought a house in Palm Springs down the street from Sheena. So are these cast members making so much money that they can buy second homes? Meanwhile, Schwartz was saying that he was running out of money at one point, and the Toms had to get a refund on their $50,000 investment into TomTom. So I'm like, are Tom Sandoval and Schwartz just spending money recklessly, essentially? And the others are like saving their money and like investing in things to the point where they can buy homes in the desert, which is where, if you don't know, that's where Palm Springs is. It's in the desert. And then things start to go left with Tom Sandoval and James Kennedy. James Kennedy gets out his seat like he's about to fight Tom Sandoval. Andy Cohen is trying to hold Tom Sandoval back. James won't shut up. He calls Sandoval a backstabbing hoe, among other things that I'm not going to repeat on this episode because if it's not worth it, I have to say, you have to watch the uncensored version on Peacock. No, I'm not sponsoring Peacock. Peacock is not paying for this podcast, even though I will take a check, Peacock. I'll take a check as long as the check clears. So then Andy has to basically seat James Kennedy back in his seat and reprimand him like a child. And I have to say, because, listen, James Kennedy is very entertaining. James Kennedy, I feel like, is very valuable to the show. James Kennedy is great for reality television because James Kennedy is unpredictable. You never know what he's going to do. You don't know what he's going to say. But at the end of the day, James Kennedy still acts like a 12-year-old man-child. And sometimes it's a little bit too much. And it's annoying. And at some point, it felt like Andy was talking to his son, Ben, saying, like, walk off stage. And if you have to go pee, go pee. Like, James, you're 31. We're the same age. And I would never act like that. But I also guess that's why I'm not a reality star. So James walks off set to go take a tinkle. And then he turns around. He says, "You're a worm with a mustache," That was funny. I have to say, as annoyed as I was getting with James in that moment, like I was annoyed and laughing at the same time. You're a worm with a mustache. You can't write that. You just can't write it. It just flows naturally out the mouth of James Kennedy. And I thank him for that moment. I truly do. I'm probably going to name this episode "You're a Worm with a Mustache" or some form of that. Maybe "Worm with a Mustache?" Question mark? We'll see. But I have to say, I think it's easy for Lala to tell Tom Sandoval, don't bring things up from the past. This is about the present. Because let's all remember, Lala was still the mistress to her ex-husband. And I don't care how long ago it was. It surely wasn't 500 years ago. It was more like 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe like 3 or 4 seasons ago. So 500 years does not equate to 3 or 4 seasons. I'm sorry, Lala. I understand that you want to go in and Tom Sandoval because of how he betrayed Ariana and that he slept with her best friend. And I understand that it's technically different from your mistress behavior. But I think those who live in glass houses should not throw such large and sharp stones. At this point, I feel like Lala is actually throwing a boulder through the glass house of Tom Sandoval. And watch out, you might get a sharp stone back in your house, Lala. So watch yourself. Then LVP tries to reprimand James Kennedy. And honestly, LVP, if Andy Cohen could not get James Kennedy together, what makes you think that you'll be able to get James Kennedy together? And then James Kennedy's like, "Oh, I'm going to get sent for a timeout. Are you going to spank me, LVP?" I'm like, boy, James Kennedy must have been a headache to deal with as a child. I could only imagine his poor mother. This man, he must have said some crazy things to his mother. Crazy. Because James Kennedy's a child. I love him, but that's the worst thing about James Kennedy is his behavior. But like I said, it's valuable for the show. So Andy asked Tom Sandoval, why didn't he try to tell Ariana about the affair? And Sandoval says that he was plotting with his therapist. Listen, these therapists are out here making bank, and they are helping people plot to tell their girlfriends, significant others, wives, partners that they cheated on them. Like, is that a class in school when you go to school to be a therapist? How to plot to help your patient break the news that they've cheated on their partner? Should I have gone to college to be a therapist? Instead, I'm here hosting a podcast, but I'm exactly where I need to be. So like I said, Sandoval said he was plotting with his therapist to tell Ariana about the affair after they have fully finished wrapping this current season. And he says that they wanted to make sure that interviews were done. All of that was done, so it would not have to come up on camera and take away from Ariana and Katie's storyline about their sandwich shop, their Jimmy John's sandwich shop that is named Something About Her, which sounds like a song. And it probably should be a song. But shout out to Katie and Ariana for making $200,000 off of Something About Her merchandise. I tell you, being on a reality show may cause you a headache, but it pays off. It pays off to have this platform. Honestly, like so I have to talk about the fact. I know I'm supposed to be breaking down this episode, but so I just finished watching the uncensored version on Peacock. I know I've said that like 3 or 4 times now, but yesterday when the show was airing, I went to a Vanderpump Rules watch party, and my friend Jonathan, my good friend, he came with me to the Vanderpump Rules watch party. Jonathan has never seen Vanderpump Rules. He's heard of the show. He's seen clips of the drama on social media. But like, I told him, I was like, you need to come over my place and I need to show you the season finale of the show so you know exactly what you are stepping into. And he came over, had a glass of wine. We're watching the season finale. He's shocked. We go over our friend's place. We go to the Vanderpump Rules watch party. We're watching this. Jonathan is in shock. There's conversation happening about this whole thing. Honestly, last night should have been filmed or recorded for a podcast because it was very entertaining to hear everyone's perspective on everything that's going on. Like it was pretty awesome to experience it live and then come back and rewatch it and take notes and then break it down. So back to the recap. Then Andy asked Tom Schwartz when he found out about the affair. Tom Schwartz, and the Tom Schwartz way, goes around in circle, giving story, but not getting to the point. And his ex-wife, Katie, calls him out. I love Katie. I don't know Katie because this is like my first full season watching Vanderpump Rules in like several years. And I know some people feel like Katie is a little cold and some people feel like she's a little bitchy, but I feel like Katie this season has been the most level-headed person of everyone that I've seen on the show. But Tom Schwartz reveals that Sandoval told him in late August, and then Tom Sandoval is shocked by that, reveal from Tom Schwartz. And let's remember, Tom Sandoval said in the pre-interview that he told Schwartz in late January. And then Lala's like, oh, did you guys not get your story straight? And it seems like they didn't. Schwartz says Sandoval told him in late August. Sandoval said in the pre-interview he told Schwartz in January. So that's August, September, October, November, December, January. That's a 5-month difference. I would understand if Schwartz said late August And Sandoval was like October or late September. But late January is several months away from late August. So they didn't have the story straight in that moment. And I was like, wow, Tom Schwartz spilled the beans. And I felt like Tom Schwartz had to, because he was being implicated in this cheatation. And I guess Tom Schwartz felt like there was a reputation to save on his part. Do I feel like Tom Schwartz helped himself in this moment? No. But I don't know. I'm confused by Tom Schwartz because he plays this like puppy dog role. And like, as someone that has not consistently watched Vanderpump Rules to really know Tom, watching the season, like, I can smell BS from a mile away. I might play along and, pretend not to know that I see the real you. But I have to say that I don't know if who Tom Schwartz is on camera is who he is as an actual person off camera. But I feel like he's playing the role of this like bashful, shy puppy dog guy. And like, I'm not falling for it. I don't know if the other viewers are falling for it, but I'm not. I'm just not. And then, let's see, where was I? Sorry, I got lost in my notes. Yeah. So we get to the reunion block 2. We get into Katie and Tom Schwartz marriage ending. Like I said, I know some people don't like Katie and they feel like she's cold, but I feel like she's level-headed. And she's fully able to articulate her feelings and perspective on things without being performative in the way that Lala is, and the way that James Kennedy is, and the way that Tom Sandoval is, because that whole season finale, Tom Sandoval was, I would say, giving an Oscar-winning performance, but it was not an Oscar-winning performance, because when you win an Oscar, usually, as an actor, you have convinced the audience of the role that you're playing. And I'm not convinced about anything about Tom Sandoval. Because, like, let's be real. Before Vanderpump Rules came along, Tom Sandoval wanted to be an actor. He was a struggling actor. He had headshots. He was going on auditions. A lot of these people on Vanderpump Rules were trying to get into the business. They were trying to be actors, and they happened to land on a reality show. And so I feel like in last week's episode, Tom Sandoval was channeling some soap opera acting, Young and the Restless. And Tom Sandoval, go to acting classes. Plenty of them in Los Angeles. Surely you can find one and come back next season and try to give a performance that's believable. So Tom Schwartz apologizes to Katie for hurting her by making out with Raquel in Mexico, which is great. That's a great apology. Then he canceled out that apology by continuing to say he felt liberated by the makeout, though. And then it cuts to shady, gutter snipe, mistress, sideline hoe, Raquel, in her parking lot trailer, smirking when Tom Schwartz said that he felt liberated by making out with Raquel. Raquel, you know a camera's on you. You know eyes are on you at this point. You know that Bravo's gonna cut in some shady clips of you and your reaction to what you're watching on stage. But that little smirk when Tom Schwartz was like, oh, I felt liberated by making out with Raquel. This is why people don't like you, Raquel. Because of situation, like you just look like, it seems like you just have no regret. You have no remorse. Like, it just seems like you're just thirsty to be on this show. And I have to say, this whole cast should be eternally grateful for the mess that is Sandoval, because this show, in my opinion, was on the chopping block. Yesterday's reunion episode got over 4 million viewers. The highest numbers that I think Vanderpump Rules has had in years. years. Last year, Vanderpump Rules was getting like 700,000 live viewers, which live viewers means like people watching the live version on television. That does not include the people that watch on DVR, the people that watch on demand, the people that watch on Peacock or stream, however you watch it. So to go from 700,000 live viewers to 4 million is a big deal. And this cast has basically secured, thanks to Sandoval, at least another season or two. At least, maybe 3. But we have to see how next season goes. So Sandoval says that the one night stand and having an ongoing affair aren't the same thing. But Sandoval, a cheat is a cheat that's a cheat that cheats. Whether it happened once or it happened multiple times. Why are you trying to justify this? This is not a good look. This is your moment to take your lashings, take the heat from your cast, take the heat from your ex-girlfriend, answer the tough questions. Don't try to justify like, oh, a one-night stand and ongoing cheatation aren't the same thing. Like, what is wrong with you? What is going through your head? What is going through your head, boy? And then so Andy points out that this group is a group of cheaters, which is true. It's very true. Andy said no one's hands in that group are clean with the exception of Katie and LVP, which is true. Like I said, that I have not consistently watched Vanderpump Rules, so I was shocked to find out that Tom Schwartz was like actively making out with several people while in a relationship with Katie. So Katie, like, I'm looking at you a little crazy because like I know you love Tom Schwartz and you guys were together for 12 years, but what does that say about how you feel about yourself and what you were deserving of as a person, as a woman, as an individual, that you would stay in a relationship with a man that is humiliating you on national television and making out with several people? Because in my opinion, if it's happened several times and there are no consequences to that behavior, essentially you're giving permission for it to happen. Whether you believe that or not, that's my opinion. This is why this is Bravo T with Jared B, because it's my opinion. But that's what, what does that say about yourself when you sit there and allow certain behavior consistent behavior from your partner and the behavior does not change? What does that say about what you believe about yourself and what you feel like you are deserving of as an individual? I will let you sit with that. So then Andy asked Tom Schwartz about this girl named Jo, who Katie said is a Looney Tune. Jo is someone that he was in a situationship with and was kind of his roomie. They were friends with benefits. They were both getting out a long-term committed relationship. So this was basically sex for convenience. But then Andy Cohen asked Tom Schwartz, did they go on double dates with Tom Sandoval and Raquel? Tom Schwartz is like, no, he denies it. But Lala was like, they went to Big Bear together. And I don't know, maybe Tom Schwartz is confused, but okay, technically you did not go on a double date with Tom Sandoval and Raquel, but you did go on a couples trip. You did go skiing. He says he went there to go snowboarding with Tom Sandoval. That may be true. But was Raquel there? Yes. Was Jo there? Yes. Are you and Jo in a situationship? Yes. Were Raquel and Sandoval in a relationship? Yes. Wouldn't that make it a couples trip? So in this situation, Tom Schwartz, you look bad. That was a great question for Andy. Like that question was very sly, very subtle, and the results of that question definitely yielded results, I have to say. It yielded great results. And then James Kennedy starts booing like he's at a Laker game. Again, the childish behavior. James Kennedy, in my opinion, was doing a little bit too much, but he was earning his check, so go James Kennedy. Then we get to the third reunion block. The Toms are asked about Schwartz and Sandy's, and then we find out that the Toms own 5% of TomTom, and LVP ended up giving them back both their $50,000 investment into TomTom because they needed the money. And she still allowed them to keep their 5% ownership, which is extremely generous. How many people do you know can make an investment into a business and for that business to then proceed and happen and open and then ask for your investment back? I don't invest in anything other than myself. But I don't think people normally get their investment back. But I have to, my main question is, do the Toms own 5% each, which means that they own 10% together? Or do they own 5% together, which means 2.5% each? That was not clarified, and I would like that to be clarified. I can probably Google it, but I try to stay off of Google. That's not true. And then Andy asks if Tom Sandoval has paid back his mom that, so allegedly, Tom Sandoval borrowed $200,000 out of his mom's retirement fund, I guess for investment, or I guess Tom Sandoval needed. It's not really clear what the $200,000 was for. Was it for the band? Was it for the house that he co-owns with Ariana? What was the $200,000 for? That I don't know. And then Andy asks Ariana if she will still speak to LVP if she continues along in her business relationship with Tom Sandoval. And I don't think Ariana was wrong for this response. Ariana has a right to not want to have any kind of involvement with Tom Sandoval. It's called creating boundaries. And I think Ariana has every right to say that the dynamics of her friendship with LVP might change because of her association with Sandoval. Ariana's like, I'm not going to Schwartz and Sandy's. I'm not going to TomTom. I'm probably not going to show up to a TomTom event, even though LVP, you are the majority owner of this restaurant. I don't want to have any involvement in it. And Ariana basically says, but I will continue to show up for you and support the things you do. But this right here, I'm not touching it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Ariana stating that and making her boundaries clear. Because when you as a person make your boundaries clear and someone crosses those boundaries and then you get upset because that person crossed their boundaries, that person can't be confused about, like, why are you acting like this? Why are you doing this? It's like, why I'm doing this. I said this was the line for me, and this line was crossed. So now there are consequences to this line being crossed. Like I said, Ariana has every right to create those boundaries. Then we get... At this point, it seems like LVP is defending the Toms, especially Tom Sandoval, a lot. It gets to the point where James and Lala say that they feel LVP is defending Sandoval too much. I think people need to remember that Lisa Vanderpump co-owned a business with Tom Sandoval and Tom Schwartz. Even if she's the majority owner... Well, because she's the majority owner. If TomTom fails, then LVP fails. We already know, wasn't Pump just closed? How many restaurants does Lisa have left? Because I think Villa Blanca is no more. I know Sir is a thing. I know Tom Tom is a thing. I know Lisa Vanderpump owns a restaurant in Vegas now, and I think she's also opening another one in Vegas. So I'm not entirely sure what of LVP's established businesses are left in Los Angeles, but I know Pump has closed recently, and also Pump was heavily impacted by COVID. But after we get that tidbit, James Kennedy walks off. And that is the end of the first part of the reunion. I have to say, it's very different recapping a reunion than it is recapping an episode, because regular episodes of these shows, there's more structure, there's a storyline that you kind of follow with each episode, and this time essentially everyone's just sitting around together screaming and cursing at each other and talking about the things that have happened throughout the season. And I don't want to sit here and mention everything that is said because it's not worth it. I'll be here forever if I did. And so I try to pick and choose the most notable things I feel like are mentioned or asked in reunion episodes. So we'll see. I think this is great practice because we have, a tumultuous 3-part reunion coming with New Jersey. And this Vanderpump Rules reunion, first part was intense, and I'm sure part 2 and 3 will be intense. And I know New Jersey, their 3-part reunion will be even more intense. So this was great practice. This was, I'm telling you, the second half of the week with these podcast episodes, it's just so much more juicy because New Jersey is crazy and Vanderpump Rules is crazy. And the Real Housewives of Atlanta is a bit lukewarm, but they're warming up. They're only on episode 3. And Martha's Vineyard, it's Summer House Martha's Vineyard I'm talking about. It's their first season. We're getting to know the group. So this group is not going to go wild and crazy. And if you go back to OG Summer House season 1, which I watched maybe a month or 2 ago, they weren't giving that much on season 1 of Summer House. Like, it was kind of similar to Summer House, Martha's Vineyard. Yes, there's a little drama. Yes, there's partying. But we're still getting to know everyone, and relationships are being established, and dynamics are being established. But I have to say, the second half of the week when it comes to Bravo are really good. And then in a couple of weeks, this is all going to switch up again. Because, again, we have Orange County on the way. Then we have the Real Housewives of New York on the way. And by the time I feel like Orange County comes, Summer House will be done with their reunions. And then New Jersey will be done with their reunions. And then Vanderpump Rules will probably be done with their reunions. So then at that point, what am I going to be recapping? Atlanta and Orange County? Maybe Martha's Vineyard? So things are going to change in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how we have to reacclimate our podcast episode drops to the current programming on Bravo. But again, everyone, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast Bravo Tea with Jared B. You can find my podcast pretty much everywhere you can listen to a podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We are on Google Podcasts. We're everywhere. We are worldwide. We're on every platform. So give us a listen. Tell your family. Tell your friends about it. Give us good reviews, please. This helps the podcast in a tremendous way when you give a review because it boosts us. I really want to get on Apple Podcasts lists of new and noteworthy. They have a section on Apple Podcasts, basically new podcasts that are kind of like making a buzz. And I would love to be on that list. I think that's determined after like the first month of a podcast. And we are, 2-3 episodes in? 2-3 weeks, I mean. So I'm probably not going to be on that. I'm probably not going to be on that list. I'm not apparently new and noteworthy, but I'm having a good time with this, and we are going to build this community episode by episode, and it is going to be great. So, like I said, subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends and family, give us a good review, and follow us on the podcast social media pages. We have at Bravo T with Jared B on Instagram. Give us a follow. And then we have at Bravo T with JB on Twitter. If you are a twatter, or, if you like to tweet, follow us on Twitter. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you guys have a safe and a happy holiday weekend. Happy Memorial Day, everyone.